Have you ever felt that there is a primitive, wild, and unbreakable force within you, but that it remains dormant, trapped under layers of fear, conditioning, and forgetfulness? Have you ever wondered why, even with so much knowledge and effort, something essential seems to be missing to achieve what you most desire? Carl Jung, one of the deepest delves into the human soul, didn't just ask these questions. He found answers that few have dared to accept. He revealed to us a brutal and liberating secret, that within us there is something stronger than logic, more durable than will, and more potent than any fleeting motivation. And what separates the ordinary from the truly great is not physical strength, cold intelligence, or social skills. It is the ability to access this hidden source of inner power and become inhumanly strong. Not strong enough to dominate others, but strong enough not to be dominated by anything. In this video, we will unravel Jung's revolutionary idea about the transformation of consciousness, the brain hack that will forever change the way you face challenges, pain, loneliness, and personal power. We will cross the superficial layers of the mind, traverse the dark corridors of the psyche, and find deep within the true, indestructible core of who you are. Get ready, because this won't just be an intellectual dive. It will be a call to the most forgotten, yet most powerful part of yourself. The journey begins now. When Carl Gustav Jung first emerged on the scene of modern psychology, the world was still trying to understand the human mind, as if it were nothing more than a collection of impulses and instincts. The science of the time was walking in the shadow of Freud, reducing the human being to a primitive struggle between desire and repression. But Jung looked further. He dared to suggest that within each of us lives an ancient vastness, an invisible network of symbols, archetypes, and energies that shape the reality we live in, often without us even being aware of it. Drawing inspiration from ancient traditions such as Gnosticism, alchemy, and Eastern wisdom, Jung saw the unconscious not as a mere psychic garbage dump, but as a fertile field where the seeds of true greatness are planted. He studied alchemical texts as if they were coded psychological manuals. He traveled to Africa, India, and the Far East in search of what the West had lost. The realization that the mind is a universe in itself, filled with powers that pure reason cannot measure. The ancient alchemists spoke of the transformation of lead into gold, and Jung understood that this process was, in fact, a metaphor for the transmutation of raw consciousness into awakened spirit. In his concept of individuation, he describes the process of becoming who you really are, accessing and integrating the hidden forces of your own psyche. And it is precisely in this movement that inhuman strength emerges, not as an external explosion of control, but as an internal, unshakable calm that arises from alignment with something greater than the ego. Like the ancient masters who crossed deserts to find wisdom, Jung saw life as an initiatory journey, a path where the greatest battles are not fought against external enemies, but against one's own inner shadows. And only those who go through this inner fire can emerge not only stronger, but truly reborn. Imagine for a moment that your mind is a vast, ancient forest. Most people live only on the edge, on well-trodden trails, where the trees are low and the paths predictable. But Jung invites us to enter the depths, where the light is thin and the unknown reigns. It is in this shadowy territory that the true treasures are hidden. And here begins the secret that few dare even consider. Your inhuman strength lies not in escaping the darkness, but in consciously passing through it. Carl Jung said that what we do not face within ourselves, we end up finding as destiny. This is the first sign. Every repressed fear, every ignored pain, every denied weakness crystallizes outside of you as obstacles, enemies, crises. This is why those who do not master their own shadow are dominated by it in invisible ways. The mind that denies its depths becomes fragile, reactive, a slave to unconscious forces. But those who dive in, who see and integrate their shadows, gain a power that cannot be taken away because it is born of the very being. When you approach your traumas like an alchemist approaches his impure metals, not to judge them, but to transform them, something extraordinary happens. Pain stops being a burden and becomes fuel. Fear stops being an executioner and becomes a silent master. Doubt stops being an enemy and becomes a bearer of new possibilities. This transmutation is the true brain hack that Jung describes in a veiled way, not eliminating suffering, but transforming it into wisdom and life force. Throughout our lives, we build masks, what Jung called persona, to be accepted, to belong. But these masks also imprison us. They make us predictable, fragile in the face of change, dependent on the validation of others. The process of individuation, this brutal and liberating hack, begins the moment you realize that the mask is not who you are, that your true self does not need the approval of the world to exist. And here's the paradox. To access this indestructible power, you have to embrace your vulnerability. You have to strip away your illusory defenses, abandon the theater of perfection, and allow yourself to be a fertile ground where fear, pain, and doubt can be observed, not as enemies, but as forgotten parts of your own being. Only then will you discover what Jung knew deeply, that true power is not acquired, but remembered, and that it has always been dormant, waiting for you to have the courage to awaken it. Now that we have entered the dense forest of the mind and glimpsed the process of transmuting the shadow, it is time to walk even deeper. Jung teaches us that it is not enough to acknowledge our inner darkness. We must make peace with it. And this reconciliation is a sacred ritual, an act of extreme courage, because it means giving up the illusion of control and embracing the mystery that lives within us. Modern society has trained us to flee from the unknown, to seek comfort, to numb any discomfort with empty distractions. But those who seek to be inhumanly strong must follow the opposite path, that of voluntary exposure to that which frightens them. Jung spoke of the transcendent function, the ability to withstand the tension between internal opposites until a new consciousness emerges. Instead of choosing between light or shadow, reason or emotion, courage or fear, the true initiate learns to sustain the paradox within themselves without breaking. This sustenance creates an inner alchemy. Like coal that turns into diamond under extreme pressure, the human soul, when it consciously endures its deepest conflicts, generates a new strength, a presence that cannot be imitated or taught, only cultivated. This is where inhuman strength manifests itself, not as invulnerability, but as an unshakable serenity in the face of chaos. But there is a hidden challenge in this process. When you begin to integrate your shadow, when you stop being a passive spectator of yourself and become the alchemist of your own soul, you inevitably collide with what Jung called the collective unconscious. The norms, expectations, and dogmas of society are living forces that try to keep you within predictable tracks. Becoming whole, authentic, and free is an act that causes discomfort in those who still live imprisoned. Be prepared. When you step beyond the mask, you will be seen as a threat. Your mere presence will expose other people's comfort zones. Your ability to not react, to not fit in, to not ask permission to be who you are, will be mistaken for arrogance, madness, even insensitivity. But remember, this doesn't speak about you. It speaks about how much others still fear their own depths. The real brain hack that Jung proposes to us is not about gaining more control over the external world. It's about freeing yourself from the need for control. It's about becoming a center of gravity so strong, so rooted, that no criticism, rejection, or external crisis can knock you down. Not because you shield yourself, but because you become permeable. You stop resisting the flow of life and learn to navigate it like a master of the invisible currents. And in the end, what seemed like a mental technique is actually a spiritual rebirth. Because by integrating your shadows, by enduring paradoxes, by walking alone through the inner forest, you don't just become strong. You become whole. And wholeness, as Jung knew, is the greatest strength a human being can achieve. You can know the most profound concepts of psychology, you can intellectually understand all of Carl Jung's theories, but if you don't transform this knowledge into living practice, you will be just another full mind and an empty life. The real hack that makes someone inhumanly strong is not in knowledge, it is in silent action, in the internal cultivation that no one sees, but that changes everything. The first step to activating this strength is relentless self-observation. Not the superficial observation of someone who notices a defect and forgets about it the next day, but constant vigilance, like a warrior who never lets his guard down in the face of his own weaknesses. When you feel the automatic reaction arising, anger, anxiety, fear, stop. Don't fight the impulse, don't blame yourself. Just observe it like someone contemplating a wild beast in its cage. Every time you observe without acting impulsively, it is as if you are strengthening the current of your true will over the automatic instincts. This, repeated every day, begins to shape a free mind. The second step is conscious retreat. Set aside small moments of deep silence each day away from stimuli to immerse yourself in your own presence. It is in this empty space that the spark of true strength is ignited. Carl Jung spoke of the importance of integrating the shadow, facing what you fear most in yourself, embracing your contradictions without judging them, but also without identifying with them. Every time you embrace your imperfections without dissolving into them, your energy field is strengthened. Don't seek to be perfect. Seek to be whole. And wholeness is born from the courage to face what is ugly, fragile, dishonest in yourself, and still choose to walk with dignity. This is the practice that, applied with discipline, silently transforms the structure of the soul. Being inhumanly strong, as Jung would symbolically suggest, does not mean becoming invincible in the face of the world, but invulnerable to the internal storms that the world provokes. It is discovering that true strength does not lie in resisting the impact, but in not getting lost in it. When you practice self-observation without judgment, when you become silent to listen to what pulses in the subterranean part of your consciousness, when you embrace your shadows without letting them rule your being, something extraordinary happens. You stop being a plaything of circumstances. You become the silent center of your own universe. The storm may roar, the provocations may come, but you do not move with the wind. Your strength is not reactive, it is creative. You do not respond, you choose. You do not defend yourself, you build. This is the true achievement of a life, not to dominate the world, but to dominate yourself. So now, at the end of this journey, I ask you, what will you choose? To continue to be trapped in automatic reactions or to begin the silent work that transforms ordinary men into forces of nature? The decision is yours. If this message resonated somewhere within you, remember, the process begins with the first small act of awareness, and each act is a brick in the construction of your true freedom.